Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests, with host Christina Nichman.
Our sponsor today is Family Kind. Family Kind offers education and support services to adults and children experiencing separation or divorce. Family Kind teams up with mental health experts, lawyers, mediators, and parent coordinators who are licensed professionals with decades of experience. To find out more about Family Kind, visit familykind.org. Hello everyone, and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week on Savvy, we host successful individuals and business owners, inviting them to share their dreams, stories, wisdom, and lessons learned in their field of business. Our guest today is Jackie Boone, CEO and founder of 6 Months to Live, a global company, online publication, and web series that is passionately committed to empowering individual clients and companies to dream big and create their personal and professional visions. 6 Months to Live began as a personal life experiment in response to a question, what would you do if you had 6 months to live? Today, it has grown to a global movement that attracts thousands of people worldwide who inspire and support one another in truly living. To find out more about Jackie and her company, visit 6monthstolive.me. Hi, Jackie. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Christina? Thanks so much for having me.
Doing very well, and I'm glad to have you out. We met recently at a recent networking event, and I loved your story, girl. You have such a fascinating story, from living and teaching abroad to traveling our wonderful nation, and you have this really cool 6-month experiment you did, starting with a question a friend asked you. Share with our audience more about this whole path and how you came to working with entrepreneurs.
Happy to do so. So 6 Months to Live started about 5 years ago, and I was asked at a conference, what would you do if you had 6 months to live? And that question really stuck with me and resonated with me because at the time I had just moved back from living in China for 3 years and working on a ranch in Montana and doing some fun, very inspiring, and very purposeful work. And I was in this kind of in-between period and wasn't really sure how to reacclimate to the States and what was my mission and my purpose now that I was back. And so I started a 6-month experiment all about really living the life that you're here to live and not waiting until something drastic or dire happens. So I started this experiment not as if I were going to die in 6 months, but with that same passion and conviction and focus. And I did a lot of really fun things during that time. And one of them was I wrote 168 letters of appreciation to people all over the world who had meant something to me, because I thought, if I were in the position where I were given 6 months to live, I would really want people to know what they had meant to me and the impact that they had on my life. And I thought to myself, why am I not doing that now? What holds us back from even taking that action and letting those know around us what we do? And I also moved to San Francisco during that time at a little over $1,000, moved on New Year's Eve. I didn't know anyone there. I had a place to live for a month, and I had this dream of living there and getting a great job. And 5 weeks later, after, taking care of a black lab chow mix and pounding the pavement and going to all these interviews, I landed my then dream job. And I was working directly for the CEO of a very large company based in New York, managing their international strategic partnerships. So it was like a dream come true. And this experiment turned into a life philosophy, which then grew into this global community and a Kickstarter project to raise a web show. And then from that, ultimately grew a business of helping other people really share their movement, their mission, and building a business around a life that fulfills them and helping companies tap into their purpose as well.
Wow. I love that. Many years ago, I was in a stump, really, really uncomfortable and unhappy, unfulfilled. And I think many of us can relate to being in a point of our lives where we're not particularly happy with where we're at. And sometimes we think we have to make these super huge, drastic changes in order to be happy. And what I did at the time is I wanted to study abroad like you did, but I wanted to study in a Spanish-speaking country, and I chose Puerto Rico because at that point it would be easier to move about and to get tickets and live there. But I moved to Puerto Rico almost on a whim. I studied for about 6 weeks before I moved and had like just $1,000 on me, just like you. And I got a job within 2 weeks, and it was a wonderful experience. But it's interesting that you mentioned that not all the time you living as if you have 6 months has to be something drastic. It can just be remembering those around you and appreciating them.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember you sharing your story about Puerto Rico, and I think it's a great one. And I 3 years later, after I started the blog, and I was in the corporate job, which I absolutely loved when I first started it, and towards the end of it, it just it wasn't speaking to me in the same way because I was in a marketing role doing social media, and I loved the social media aspect, but the technology and tweeting about HR technology just wasn't what lit me up anymore. So I had another kind of moment. And one of the reasons I love 6 months to live so much is because it constantly keeps me accountable to really question, am I still living the life I really want? And to view my life more as an adventure and something to be truly lived and to appreciate every moment. So it keeps me accountable in a different way. And at that time, I decided that it was something sort of drastic to shake things up. Because like you said, sometimes you really need to shake things up and do something different. So I ended up learning how to sail and sailing and crewing for a skipper in Mexico. But sometimes it's just readjusting, impacting the community around you, and just shifting your head the 20 degrees to see the difference between the sunrise and the dirt. A lot of times it is that simple of a change.
Yeah, that reminds me of someone who said that their life drastically shifted one day when they just changed their perspective. And it sounds so hard, but really it's not. It's just asking different questions sometimes. That it can be that simple. Just saying, well, what would happen if I chose to see the environment I'm in, the job I'm in right now as a blessing? What would happen if I lived that? And he did that, and his life transformed. And then a month later, he got a job of his dreams from just changing his attitude.
It can do so much. I remember sitting with one of my clients, and we were talking about our business, and we were in Asheville, North Carolina, where the Biltmore Mansion is. And where we were sitting, there was a little pond. And if you looked literally to your left, and you didn't even have to move yourself, we were just sitting. If you looked to your left, you saw goose poop. And if you look straight ahead, you saw this Biltmore Mansion, which is absolutely gorgeous. And it was shocking to me, just the 45-degree difference. And like, you can focus on the goose poop or you can focus on where you're going and focus on the mansion. And so we use that as an analogy for where she was in her business about, okay, instead of focusing on the poop, how can you turn this into just focus on where you're going? Because there will be goose poop on the path sometimes in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And just trudge through and keep going towards the mansion.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now in your present course, how are you helping entrepreneurs and small businesses discover their calling and purpose?
Well, one of the primary ways is really tapping into their vision and what they really want to achieve as their mission. So one of the upcoming courses that I'll be teaching with my co-founder, Elizabeth Cardiello, is something called Master Your Mission. And it's all about mastering your story, mastering your narrative, getting clear about who you want to communicate with and the kind of mission that you want to impart. So whether it's working with solopreneurs or small companies or even doing some targeted campaigns for larger organizations, it's about what is the goal that we want to achieve and helping them get really clear about who's the target market, who do they want to speak to, how do we really create messaging that is authentic, real, and in alignment with where they want to go so that they can create a massive movement and get people excited, just sort of what Tom's has done with their movement, getting the 1-for-1 and the giving trips to Argentina, and how they've basically cultivated this incredibly active group of people around this idea of conscious capitalism and really bringing people together in a collaborative way to make a difference and do something that matters.
That's amazing. And along your journey to getting to where you are today, I'm sure, as you mentioned before, there were goose poop on your travels.
Yes.
But along your way, what are some of the greatest hurdles you've encountered and how did you get past them?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles pretty early on after I graduated from college, there were kind of two hurdles. I made the decision to instead of moving to New York and working at Time Inc., I had interned in the marketing department at InStyle the summer before, which is a very difficult internship to get and much less a paid internship. So the logical path was to return to Time Inc. or a similar organization and sort of work my way up. And I just had this feeling that there was something more, and that the sort of the logical path, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I could just see so clearly where that would lead. And I wanted to do something that I felt really meant something and was a little bit more out of the box. So when the opportunity came up to volunteer teach in rural Hunan province in China, when I did not speak Mandarin and I did not know a lot about Chinese culture, there was this inexplicable urge and calling to go there. And I'm actually writing a book called Heart Language that sort of talks about that pulling of your heart and how it has its own language and how to really follow that, especially when it's hard. So there were two challenges. One was I went against everything that I was supposed to do. And that had a lot of backlash from friends and family who were like, why are you passing up this amazing opportunity, and you've done all these things to go to middle of nowhere China and receive a $250 stipend a month, and you don't even speak Mandarin. And like, we don't, obviously you're from Atlanta, we don't have a lot of, our family's not Chinese or anything like that. And then the other big challenge was once I landed there, I didn't speak Mandarin. I was the only white girl in the town. And how do you teach 21 classes of 60 students and connect with them when you, one, don't speak the same language, and two, don't have the same culture, and three, they already sort of have this idea of who you are, and some people are excited about that and some people aren't. So it was just a massive learning curve in how to communicate with people from different backgrounds and how to create shared conversations about something that matters. I really believe in win-wins. In Chinese, they call it shuang yin, which means a twin win. And so I looked for ways to engage my students because I really wanted them to receive value from our time together, because especially in China, the education system is incredibly rigorous. So they are at school from 5 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night. And they only receive a half-day break on Sundays.
Whoa.
So their class with me was the one class a week that was sort of seen in some ways as like the break class, because I was the oral English teacher. But I wanted it to be fun and for them to be inspired to learn about other cultures and other ways of thinking and English in a different way. So we did a lot with that. And I actually found out yesterday that one of my students, if you knew where this girl came from, you'd be amazed. When I met her, she was 17. She gave me my first pomegranate. I'd never seen a pomegranate. And she was born with a birthmark. So in that part of China, it was seen as like a quote birth defect. So they were allowed to have a second child because, there's a one child policy in China. She had always been fascinated by American culture or foreigners or different experiences. And she was very active in coming to English Corner and communicating with us and over the years. And her dream has always been to come to America or to work in another country. And I just got a message from her yesterday on Facebook that she's in New York.
Oh.
So I get to see her later tonight. And I've been with her family. I've been there for Chinese New Year multiple times. I know where she's come from. So the fact that she's been able to, now she's going to be working as an au pair outside of DC for a year, and just even having that experience of living in another country, it's unbelievable. So that brings me a lot of joy.
Wow. And I find from my own experiences traveling abroad and learning, it's been instrumental in letting me see that really people around the world are not that different. I mean, there are cultural differences in the way people see things and their perspective, but at the end of the day, we all want a healthy lifestyle. We want our kids to be healthy. We want to be able to eat and provide for our families, have a good life. It really doesn't change that much from people to people, but often we put up these barriers of how different we are and how much more special this country is over that country. And when you break it all down, we're all people.
Exactly.
Well, through all of this and you're in your path and going to China and all you've learned, what would you say has been your greatest lesson on your journey so far?
I think it goes back to that idea of heart language, of really taking the time to listen, because I believe that's sort of your internal guidance system. And a lot of times it will not logically make sense. Your head can convince you of anything. It can convince you of all the right reasons to do things or all the wrong reasons to do something, all the pros and cons. And I'm a strategic thinker, so I absolutely think you need to bring your head along with you. It's not just a matter of like, oh, I feel this way, so I'll just do this. It's not like that at all. But it's really taking the time to tune into yourself, to create that safe, sacred space of being able to listen to what you most want and to tap into your vision and being a little more introspective, and then sharing that and then bringing your head along with you. If you start with your heart and what you really want, and then you bring along your brain, it can think about all the ways that can happen, all the strategic alliances, all the different communities and the people and the things that can happen to come together. And it sort of forms this triangle that establishes your vision. And from that place, you can create something that has heart and strategy. So that's what I really focus on both, because I find that some people can be a little bit, in the dream world, and that's wonderful. You need to have the dreams. And some people can be a little bit too grounded and too focused on the day-to-day or not looking up enough at the horizon. So really coming in the middle and connecting the two is where the magic happens, and especially in business.
And I can relate to that. When I first started business, I was really more of a grounded type of gal. I was like, I want to see results. I want it measured ahead of time before I even take my first step. And I think for me, the hard part was to trust my heart and know that, okay, here's my heart vision. Let me put a plan of action and take the first step forward when I don't see the full picture yet. And I think that might be a block for some people out there to take that first step with just maybe knowing the first couple of steps or first step to take forward with your heart before having the whole picture in front of you. Because often I don't think you can see the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Steve Jobs says, you can never connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them going backwards. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage people that are listening, if you're sort of in that place of unsureness, or you're in the process of kind of transitioning, or you're thinking about the next place you want to go in your business, to really take a moment and don't beat yourself up about having all the hows and all the how-tos, because there's always people that will show up to strategically align you with that goal, and they will show up in the craziest of places. But I've heard this really good quote, and I remind myself of it. It's not up to you to know the how, it's up to you to know the what. The how is the universe's job. So as long as you are very clear about your vision, your goal, and what you want to achieve. And by clarity, I don't necessarily mean that you have to know crystal clear exactly what it looks like. It's a combination of being specific and open to how it shows up. And that's when it can show up even better than you could have ever expected in your wildest dreams.
Yes, absolutely. And this reminds me, many years ago, I had done an exercise in a book called Plan Out Your Dream Life. And it was really interesting because I planned out my dream life. My friend read it and said, boy, I love your partner in your dream life, because I didn't have a partner or a boyfriend or a husband. And my partner in my dream life was this guy who had a ripping body, would go out running every morning at 5 a.m, and I would make cappuccinos for us, and we'd have a nice long sit down breakfast. And she's like, I love the way your honey goes out running for you and looking hot for you. But it was funny, because then they said, take that dream life and what portions or elements exist in your life already, and which ones don't. And then of your dream life, which aspects do you really, really, really want? What's your really heart's calling and longing? Because often we'll dream stuff because, $1 million in the bank, and all my problems will be over. But when you look at it and take it apart, is that really your dream? Is that really your heart's calling? Or is that just something you've heard society tell you would make your life just jam spanking awesome?
Exactly. And I think one of the ways that you can tell where your heart really is by your actions. So I can always tell what I'm most interested in by how motivated I feel to do something. Because if I really want something, I will go for it, and I won't stop until I get there. And there's been a lot of goose poo on the way. I mean, the moving to San Francisco at one point, I think I shared this with you, Christina, when we met for coffee. I was down to $200 when I got the job, and I was down to 2 meals a day and taking care of a black lab chow mix named Sparky while someone went on a yoga retreat in this moldy back room of a San Francisco apartment so that I could stay to finish the interview process. So it takes a lot of courage to follow your heart's desires, because we're not really encouraged to do that. We're encouraged to sort of follow a path and be safe. But one of the best quotes I've seen on Facebook is the biggest risk that you can take is the risk that you'll one day have the time to do all the things that you had wanted to do. That you'll one day have the time to travel, because heaven forbid you do everything you're supposed to do and you're ready to travel at 60 or 65, and maybe it's not even you, maybe it's your partner comes down with cancer and you can't travel, or you can't do what it is that you had set out to do and waited for so long. So integrating, even if you can't travel in the way you want to travel right now, having more of that sense of adventure in your life. So taking a weekend trip or exploring something in your backyard, in your city, and bringing, just like you were saying, bringing more of what you want in your current life and seeing that around you, which often can change your perspective and attract more of what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think often people will think that, hey, if you're going along your path and following what you feel is your heart's pulling and longing, but then poo starts to show up. People
That's natural.
Yeah, they start to think, oh, I'm on the wrong path. See, this is my heart telling me I'm not on the wrong path. Oh, recourse, I have to go a different direction. And no, sometimes I think, I don't know if it's just so much the universe trying to test you, it's just life. Stuff comes up, it's not perfect, and you'll just have to go through it, but it doesn't mean you made a mistake, because you could be on the off path, not following your heart, and poo can still show up in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that when stuff does come up and you're sort of like, oh, there's that goose stuff again.
Yeah.
Just ask yourself, go back to that idea. That's why the vision is so important, and really connecting with it in some way every single day. So whether it's in your business or your personal life, I wake up every morning and I have a ritual where I give thanks for 10 things before I allow myself to get out of bed. And at night, I give thanks for 10 things, because gratitude, when you focus, what you focus on grows. So if you're focusing on, I have enough, I attract great clients, I know what I'm building. When you have those moments when things come up, because they will, it's life, it's business, that's the spirit of entrepreneurship. You don't have to let it stop you. It's just like a little speed bump on your way to your destination, versus if you don't have a clear vision, it can completely derail you and hard to get back on the right path.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've totally discovered that for myself. And I'm so excited for you to share with our audience. You have so many amazing things coming up. Share with our audience some of the amazing events and launches you have coming up in the coming year.
Yes. So one of the most exciting things is that we are doing Getaway Camp next month in Asheville, North Carolina, April 24th through 26th. And Getaway Camp is basically, it's summer camp for entrepreneurial women. So I had been attending all of these wonderful networking events, but I'm sure those listening know, whether you're a woman or a man, that networking it can be fun and exciting, but it would just be nice to meet people in a way that is fun and exciting, and it doesn't have to be so formalized. So the camp is at a camp called Camp Rockmont in Asheville, North Carolina. It's 550 acres. There's a zip line into the water. There's a blob. There's a water slide that starts in the trees. There's archery. There's horseback riding. There's all sorts of stuff. So it really provides women a safe place to get away, to have fun, and to connect with other very smart, savvy business women, but in a different environment from all over the U.S.
Wow, that sounds so much fun. And you have some other things coming up as well?
Yes. So the other thing that I'm very excited about that I mentioned briefly earlier is Master Your Mission. And Master Your Mission is in July. Believe it's July 10th through 15th. And it's in Tuscany. So that is very exciting, and everyone gets their own little beach chalet. And so it's a business retreat, and it's really an intensive to discover what is your mission? How do you share your story? If you're already a little bit clear about your mission, but you're not quite sure how to share it or open the different doors for, speaking or a book, or even just working for companies on a larger scale for your business. So it's bringing together both corporate women and entrepreneurial women, which is pretty unique, to come together to spend 5 days to rejuvenate, think about what their mission is, and get really clear on their next steps, and then strategically align themselves with marketing opportunities to do that, and how to really grow that in a way that they have a movement that is clear that they stand for, so that they can grow their business or their career.
Wow. So that's Tuscany, Italy, right?
Yes, Italy. Yes.
Wow. I think I need to go away for that one. I've still not visited Italy yet, but tell me why. And I've discovered this for myself, but tell the audience why actually getting out of your comfort zone and going to a totally different sometimes location or country or hanging out with different people really changes and allows you to open up creatively. And why is that a good thing?
I love that question because I think that travel is the greatest training for entrepreneurship and business and just life in general there is. Because as those listening who are business owners know, sometimes things happen. Sometimes the goose poop comes up. The train doesn't always come when you're traveling. Or when I was living in rural China, I had to very quickly learn how to think on my feet and be flexible enough to still achieve my goal, but maybe take a slightly different path. So the bus didn't show up. So how am I going to get to where I want to go? And so I think being out of your normal element, connecting with people from different parts of the world in Tuscany, because it will be international, and then domestically for the getaway camp, it allows you to think a little differently, to open your mind, to get into that space of creativity. And when you're in that space, you're much more open to new ideas, new thinking. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Google even encourages their employees to have a certain percentage of their time where they're just thinking, or that there's so many opportunities to play at the Google campus. Because if you're in a state of play, if you're in a state of thinking more abstractly, you allow yourself to bring in ideas that you may not have been open to if you're too in the weeds, like we talked about earlier, or too in the stars and you don't have anything strategic to do with that.
Absolutely. Wow. It's been so fabulous having you out here today, Jackie. And before we head on out, is there any last words you'd like to leave with our audience?
I think that the biggest thing I would like to leave is just life is short, and it's something we hear all too often, and it's something it's easy to take for granted, myself included, with even as involved as I am with it. So I really want you to think about this idea of what would you do if you had 6 months to live, because it's a focusing question. If you had 6 months to live, you would do what you really wanted to do, and you also wouldn't care what other people thought of you. So I encourage you to tap into your heart, to get clear about what you really want in your business and your life, and how you can then create something that makes a difference, getting in and tapping into that overall sense of purpose and that mission, and then come together with other like-minded people to help support and grow that mission.
I love that advice, because I've heard far too many stories of people waiting to something crisis or sickness coming into your life to make that change where you're living your heart's calling. And we don't have to do that. We can live our best life today. So I thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Our sponsor today is Family Kind. Family Kind offers education and support services to adults and children experiencing separation or divorce. Family Kind teams up with mental health experts, lawyers, mediators, and parent coordinators who are licensed professionals with decades of experience. To find out more about Family Kind, visit familykind.org.